Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Industry players are responding this evening to a cut in the daily foreign exchange surrender requirement. The decision by the Bank of Jamaica takes effect today. It increases the amount of U.S. dollars that authorized dealers and cambios are allowed to keep for sale, since they no longer have to surrender as much to the BOJ. But according to one businessman, the reduction also exposes weaknesses in policy initiatives. Andrew Laidley reports.
BOJ has slashed foreign exchange surrender requirement by 5%. This means that cambios and authorized dealers will now have more US dollars for sale in daily transactions. Before now, cambios were required to surrender 20% to the central bank. Now they're only required to give up 15%. Similarly, authorized dealers used to surrender 25%. Now they're only required to give up 20%. CEO of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ Dennis Chung, says reducing the surrender percentage is a good move by the central bank. He says this brings the country one step closer to removing foreign exchange control altogether.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to reduce the surrender percentage because what it does, it allows the banks to have more money to sell into the market. The truth is that the surrender requirement is really have some form of foreign exchange control, and we need to move away from that. My understanding is that they intend to remove it totally, which would be good.
But he notes that it must be supported by fiscal policies that actually work for Jamaicans.
What they need to do is strengthen the things, the policy that's going to cause greater productivity in the economy. Now, the fact is that, politically, it might not be what they want to do, from a political perspective, which is why we've always pursued fiscal policies that actually, as the Prime Minister said yesterday at a press conference, that the policies that were pursued in the past have actually caused poverty when we think we're trying to alleviate poverty. So it all depends on how we govern going forward. But this in itself is not going to cause a weakness. What this is going to do is show up the weakness if we don't manage the situation properly.
And he says fiscal policies need to be strengthened.
Well, if they don't do what is necessary from a fiscal and monetary point of view to strengthen the economy in terms of the productivity and also the exports, which primarily comes back to productivity, then it will cause a weakness. But it's not just going to cause a weakness. What it is going to do is show the actual weakness that is there.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness says reform of the National Solid Waste Management Authority, NSWMA, is part of the wider move to transform the public sector. Mr. Holness says the NSWMA has been going through a transformation to correct the leakage of public funds and corruption, which he says is not acceptable. He says eventually he wants the NSWMA to become the regulator for garbage collection rather than a service provider.
There are services that government is providing that really government need not be in that service. One of them is garbage collection. I strongly hold the view that whatever service that the private sector could provide more efficiently, more effectively, government should step back away from that and allow the private sector to provide it. The role of government is to regulate. The role of government is to set standards and police those standards. The NSWMA provides the classic case of the compromise in service quality and standards when government is both the regulator and the service provider.
The Prime Minister was speaking yesterday as he commissioned 11 new garbage trucks for the NSWMA. He emphasized that the trucks were purchased directly from property tax revenues.
These new compactor garbage trucks are valued at approximately $1,658,000 US dollars. That's just a little over 200 million Jamaican dollars. I want to just pause here to reflect on that. This is not a loan. We didn't borrow this money. It was not a grant. It wasn't given to us. This money is coming from the taxes that you have paid. Specifically, this is coming from the property taxes you have paid.
Meanwhile, Mr. Holness is praising the leadership of the NSWMA board and its executive director, Audley Gordon. Mr. Gordon was appointed amid much controversy earlier this year, as critics said he wasn't qualified for the job.
It also starts with good management. And when we recommended Audley Gordon, there was quite a bit of doubt, quite a bit of cynicism. Again, the history of the organization didn't allow for immediate acceptance of the choice of Audley Gordon as executive director. But I had confidence in Audley. I know his background as a Christian man, as a strong organizer, and someone who understands the policy direction of the government. And I am certain that he is committed towards the policy direction and to ensuring that the organization is efficient.
And when we come back, the latest gas prices, that and more after the break. Welcome back. Investors won't come if businesses don't adhere to strict corporate governance standards. That's the word from local governance consultant Greta Bogues. She says based on an investor survey carried out by McKinsey & Company in the early 2000s, corporate governance plays a bigger role in investment decisions than many companies realize. Nordia Francis Williams reports.
Attracting investment is a critical part of growing the Jamaican economy. But according to Greta Bogues, no investor will consider doing business where corporate governance is not strictly observed.
Especially small countries like Jamaica and surely within the region, we're always searching for investors. And having good governance practices is now paramount for a number of entities to do business with us, and surely on the public sector side, when you have persons wanting to invest in Jamaica, governance is always very fundamental and questions are asked about that.
The governance consultant says investors are also more likely to invest in companies with non-executive directors.
And when we talked about good corporate governance, they talked about the entity actually having a majority of outside directors. And outside directors means what Simon was speaking about, in that they're non-executive, independent directors. So they were looking at entities who had NEDs.
She says proper board evaluation is also something investors scrutinize before putting their money in any business.
They also wanted to ensure that these entities undertook formal evaluation, so that there were board evaluations that were taking place. And most importantly, that the directors were also being responsive to requests from investors. So these are things that investors are looking for when they are investing in a company.
For BATV News, I'm Nordia Francis Williams.
Margaritaville Turks is blaming bad weather and an unprecedented number of cruise ship cancellations for a decline in revenues. The company released its third quarter unaudited results to shareholders yesterday. Revenues for the 9 months to February 2017 were down to $4.64 million compared to over $5.1 million the previous year. Margaritaville says that's because of bad weather in the second quarter, which resulted in the cancellation of 22 ships to the destination. An additional 6 ships also canceled calls in the third quarter. The company says this has never happened before in such large numbers. However, revenue for the quarter was up to $1.82 million from $1.78 million the previous quarter. Although profit was down to $161,000 from $215,000 previously. The company says a significant increase in the processing costs for work permit fees was the major factor in that decline. The cost of work permits doubled compared to the previous year. Gas prices go up 98 cents per liter tomorrow. Petrojam today announced the increases for E10, 87, and 90 gasoline. There's an even steeper jump in diesel prices, which are up $1.39 per liter. Ultra-low sulfur diesel increases 91 cents per liter, and kerosene is going up by 21 cents. However, propane and butane gas are both down this week. Propane will be $1.32 cheaper per liter, while butane will see a 91-cent decline. And when we come back, Puerto Rico's tourism stakeholders worry as winter season approaches. Regional and international news is up next. Welcome back. It's time now for regional and international news. A third of Puerto Rico's hotels are closed because most of the island is still without reliable electricity, water, and cell phone service. But the winter tourist season is quickly approaching, and industry stakeholders are getting worried. Here's more.
The little streets of Puerto Rico's capital are deserted. Shops are boarded up, and hotels remain shut. Tourism, a rare thriving sector on an island in a deep economic slump, is practically non-existent now.
We've been here in January, and it's almost not the same. It's so different. They really seem to fighting to survive.
The US territory usually has more than 5 million visitors a year who spend around 3.4 billion euros, creating 80,000 jobs. That makes up around 8% of the economy. And tourism is one of the only industries which has been growing during the island's 10-year recession. The high season begins in December, and officials are hoping to attract visitors by then. But only 30% of power services have been restored, and beaches are closed for swimming because of possible water contamination.
This is not an effort that can only be driven by the government. It's an effort that needs to bring together everybody. Tour operators, restaurants, everybody needs to come together and again bet at tourism as a driver of economic development.
Hurricane Maria ripped across Puerto Rico as a Category 4 storm, killing 49 people and leaving the whole island without electricity. The financial impact it's had on tourism won't be clear until after the high season ends. But the visible destruction it's left is more than obvious.
The cleanup and rebuilding process is on in earnest in Barbuda, with the government saying stricter building codes will be enforced for reconstruction. More in this report from ABS-TV.
The repairs will be effected to homes which had what's termed as level 1 and 2 damage. Those are the ones that were not extensively damaged.
We hope to complete the level 1s and 2 once we can get the additional assets in terms of manpower on the ground. We're aiming for the middle of December to complete those, and then we'll start in earnest to look at the others. It is possible that some of the level 3s could be worked on simultaneously. That will depend on whether or not homeowners have the resources to do their own repairs.
The director says the building code, which will stipulate the standards to which these homes will be rebuilt, will be unveiled at a later date. He noted this code is likely to be even stricter than the one existing in Antigua.
There are 2 phases. Phase 1, we are fixing roofs temporarily so that people can move back. Phase 2 is when we start the process of tearing down buildings that cannot be fixed and rebuilding those that have been destroyed. For that to take place, there's going to be a need for a more detailed assessment and analysis to determine whether or not a building could be salvaged or whether or not the building will have to be torn down. Buildings will be built to a standard where you should not see in the future the same level of devastation in Barbuda, but the buildings will be sufficiently resilient to absorb a greater impact from a hurricane of that level.
Mullins says repairs will not be done to homes without the cooperation of homeowners. However, he says it has been difficult to get Barbudans to offer assistance with the cleanup and repairs.
A number of persons we've made available to support the effort in terms of reaching this milestone of middle of December to complete those level 1 and level 2 repairs. To the point where we have had to turn outside to look for assistance to beef up that support.
He adds that as time goes on, increasing number of Barbudans will be needed to lend their assistance in the ongoing efforts. Jessica Russell, ABS News.
The Guyana Agriculture Ministry is moving forward with plans to manufacture local fish food for its aquaculture industry. Here's more.
Guyana is on the verge of producing its locally manufactured fish food. Ministry of Agriculture, Sadio Saw Aquaculture Station at Monrepo East Coast Demawara Fisheries Officer Nikita Duki spoke at the local production of fish food.
We have 2 feed trials. One concerns us producing a locally made feed and comparing that to the imported. We worked along with a JICA volunteer this year to produce a local feed. We were successful in terms of the feed physical characteristics being intact. That is, it won't disintegrate too quickly into the water. That trial is ongoing.
According to Duki, the production of fish food locally will be done using local inputs and will aid in the government drive to diversify agriculture in hinterlands region and reduce costs of production.
What we'll be doing is sourcing local ingredients that are pretty dominant in areas so that they can utilize it as fish feed, especially for the interior locations where importing a commercial feed would be very costly. Utilizing those ingredients that are local to them in a fish feed to promote the fish rearing activity would be a boost.
In 2001, the Monrepo Aquaculture Station was established with the aim of producing fingerlings and advancing agriculture technology. The station was dedicated to the slain agriculture minister, Sadio Saw, in August 2009. I'm Esther Sobers reporting for Channel 2 Headline News.
The European Union postponed a vote today on proposals to review the use of the controversial weed killer glyphosate, which critics say causes cancer and which the European Parliament wants banned in 5 years. More in this report.
17 years ago, Bernard Lausier decided to stop using glyphosate on his crops. He now removes weeds using what's known as a harrow, combing through the soil 4 times before planting his wheat. 8 hours of work for a job glyphosate would do in 1 hour.
I come back to check on the field regularly, every 2 or 3 weeks.
Over in his rapeseed field, Bernard uses another strategy, adding in non-threatening plants like beans and sprouts to take up space that would otherwise be taken over by weeds.
Our yield is slightly reduced, but because we're using much fewer products, we're spending a lot less money than we otherwise would. So at the end of the day, the amount of cash in our pocket doesn't change. We make the same amount of money as we would using conventional methods.
Bernard is not alone in trying to move away from herbicides. In this orchard, apple farmers are trying out an automated de-weeding machine. It's exciting, but not quite ready for commercial use.
To be honest with you, it really isn't that easy to find solutions.
Why, it's more expensive?
It's more expensive, it uses more energy. You risk damaging the trees, the roots. It's certainly not perfect.
Some 2/3 of French farmers have used glyphosate on their crops. If it's banned, they know they'll need to find viable alternatives, and fast.
Next.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks comes up next. Welcome back. It's time now for Talking Stocks. 43 stocks traded today, of which 21 advanced, 18 declined, and 4 traded firm. The main JSE index advanced by 691 points, to close at 289,238 points. The junior index advanced by 23 points to close at 3,087 points. Over 4 million units traded, valued at more than $72 million on the Jamaican dollar market. And on the U.S. dollar market, over 10,000 units traded, valued at over $2,000 US. JMMB Group 7.5%, with over 1 million units changing hands, accounted for 23% of market volume. Carreras was second, with 749,555 units trading. Scotia Group Jamaica accounted for more than 478,000 units, amounting to 10% of market volume crossing the floor. CAC 2000 was the top advancer, up 50 cents to close at $7, followed by T-Tech, up 50 cents to close at $7.55, and Pan Jam Investment, up $2.48 to close at $42.48. The main decliners were KLE Group, down 30 cents to close at $2.50, followed by Mayberry Investments, losing 41 cents to close at $4.37, and Seprod Group, down $1.25 to close at $28.75. In foreign exchange trading, the Jamaican dollar lost ground on the Canadian today, but gained on the U.S. and British pound. The U.S. ended the day selling for $127.53, losing 4 cents to the Jamaican dollar. The Canadian gained 51 cents, closing the day at $102.37, while the pound sold for $167.80, losing 50 cents to the Jamaican dollar. And that's the news. But before we go, a recap of our top story. Bank of Jamaica reduces its foreign currency surrender requirements for authorized dealers and cambios by 5 percentage points effective today. The move makes more foreign currency available for sale on the local market. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Pleasant viewing.